Hello, hello, hello. Are we live? I think we're live.
We are live. Yes,
We have a terrible delay today, Scott.
that's exciting. By which I mean,
So can you guys hear me and Scott meow? Somebody needs to type in chat if you can hear us. I'm paranoid.
yes.
Yes, yes. Ooh, Alice, look at Alice here early again. What the heck? That's amazing. Hey, everybody, it's Mike Meyers here for the Wednesday version of the Ask Mike Anything live stream. You can say today's format's a little bit different. We've got the immutable, Scott?
Inimitable.
Indomitable, indubitably.
Invincible.
Scott Cathcart Jernigan here is with us today, folks. And Scott's going to be jumping in and out as we're trying to get our guest speaker, Tim Green, who will be with us shortly, I'm sure. Tim wasn't going to spend the whole 2 hours with us, so he'll be here when he's here. And life is good. Oh, speak of the devil, here he comes. Here comes Tim Green. Y'all be nice. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Elbow. Come on in, Tim Green. There he is. Tim.
Hey, Mike.
He's on.
Hey, Tim.
Hi, Scott.
How are you?
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. We're on. We always have a small crowd at first, Tim, but it'll pick up as everybody takes 10 or 15 minutes to get on. I don't know why that is. So basically, the folks who are all on right now are the gang of rogues, and you got to be very careful. They're not politically correct, Tim. They are dangerous people, and many of them are wanted on multiple stations. So
I will proceed with caution. Thank you for the caveat.
And
well, I did see some new faces on today, so I'm going to give my standard spiel. Welcome to the Mike Meyers live stream. The goal of this live stream is to provide those of us who are isolated by the coronavirus an opportunity to continue our studies on CompTIA certifications. Now, here at Total Seminars, we concentrate on IT fundamentals, A+, Net+, and Security+, but we're certainly comfortable going outside of that, unless it's Alice Potsy who wants to give me another complicated CCNA question that I don't know the answer to. But other than that, everybody's okay. So the way this works is that you send me questions and I answer them, okay? So we start here at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time and we go till 4 o'clock Central Standard Time or until the questions come to an end. So as long as we're asking questions, or at least in this particular case, it's our special guest star, Timothy Green, executive editor for McGraw Hill Education. Did I do it right, Tim?
That's exactly right, although it's just McGraw Hill now with no hyphen.
Lord. I've been with McGraw Hill for so long that I can't keep track of all the different names and titles and everything. So so we're pretty excited about having Tim Green here, folks. We've got I really want to talk Tim more than anything else is I'd like to talk about publishing, and in particular certification publishing, and maybe some of the challenges involved there. But we're certainly not limited to that, Tim. If you've got a particular issue on certification or how much you love me, you are welcome to bring that up and talk about it in detail. And that is absolutely fine. So I don't want to make any limitations. Also, do keep in mind that folks are going to be asking questions. Alice, I'm teasing you. Charles Drubin at 2:03 p.m. is about to take the IT fundamentals exam. Good luck to you, man. So basically the goal here, guys, is I need you to type your questions into the live chat. If you want to, there is no easy way for me to do this. I'm going to put my email address here. If you want to, you can email me questions. There's my email address right there. It's in particular, if you're a little shy, which is no big deal, or if you feel the question's a little complicated, just email it to me. And that way I can address that in a more comfortable basis for both of us. That's never, ever a problem. So Scott, thank you so much for staying on here a little bit.
Sure.
Especially I got to watch Tim in case he runs off that I may need a question or two. So if you don't mind.
It just feels like a regular Friday afternoon.
It does. I was like, are we here to talk about schedules? Where are we after 8?
All right, so guys, I'm doing so badly on the Security Plus book that Scott Jernigan isn't threatening to quit. He's actually filed for divorce. So I for the record, guys, I've had a good week thus far and looking forward to me, Tim, and Scott have a meeting every Friday. And I basically sit there while they punch me. But I will have good news for this Friday. We've had a very, very productive week.
You're doing great, Mike. I'm proud of the work you and Scott have been doing. This has been a tough revision. Goodness gracious. Yes, those hand gestures are all accurate.
Yeah, it's been tough. So Tim, we actually got Robin Abernathy coming on from Cyber Vista in a couple of weeks.
Robin. Shout out to Robin.
So she wants to talk about the new Security Plus. I'm like, okay. But she's have you ever actually spoken to her?
Mm-hmm. It's been a long time. It's been a long.
She got that accent. I'll tell you what. You know that internet. You know www. Click. You know. She is hilarious. All right. So anyway, Tim, what I'd like to do is let me make sure. A lot of times people have some very, very pressing questions that they ask very early on. So I want to check the chat real quick. And actually, Tim, if you want to, you can load up YouTube Total Seminars channel. Make sure your volume is turned down on your YouTube browser, and you too can follow along on the questions. Or you don't have to. It's Tim. It's completely up to you. Whatever you want to do. All right, so guys, I'm scrolling for questions. Folks, if I miss a question, just type it again. All right, between me and Scott, we'll catch them. Scott North Music at 2:05. What about developer questions? Trying to become one and want to know what's the best path. How to become a dev mentor. Actually, so we're not really developers here at Total Seminars, given the way that we concentrate more on what I would consider more entry-level certifications. However, Tim Green, am I putting you on the spot in terms of, I honestly don't know, Tim, do you work with any developmental type certifications or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on which technology stack. In our certification program, we're not limited to just CompTIA certifications, but we cover the full gambit from programming to databases to networking. So most of my experience with developer level credentials is in the long distance past. The challenge as a publisher with developer level credentials is that not only is the content more of a challenge to develop, but what we refer to when we try to measure publishing opportunities as the installed base of the certification. How many people have gotten this certification? Is it a certified for life situation? Is this a test that you have to take and pass every 3 years? We really have to test out the market dynamics to see if the market will bear a book. And developer audiences, while large, tend to really look for other places largely for their training and their information. I was just reading the new Global Knowledge IT salary survey report earlier this week and was happy to see that folks still globally, 60% of people responded that they still use books as a supplemental form of training. Which is good news for us, but also it makes a lot of sense. But developers tend to really rely more on instructor-led training, on hands-on, learning on the job learning. They do use books, but it's a smaller audience, so it's been more of a challenge there. I used to do more on the VB and the Microsoft back in the days of MCSD, for those of you who remember MCSD.
I do.
And other higher level credentials with the Microsoft program. I've had to step away from that because it was just too narrow of a market. I can't share this. The thing I loved about developer level titles was, especially back in the Microsoft days, their funky case study based format questions.
I do remember those.
Yeah, it was really the place that we first started to see performance based testing, although very different than what we would refer to as performance based testing today.
They were multiple choice questions, but it was like answers the primary and the secondary, that kind of stuff, Tim?
That's exactly right. You'd have like an exhibit, and then you'd have a set of multiple choice questions that referred back to that exhibit. So you were always kind of having to flip back and forth, check the exhibit. But in CompTIA speak, it's what we would refer to as scenario-based questions now. But
I remember those.
it was a multiple question set with a case study, and it was the first time for me as a publisher and a developer of content that I had to wrap my brain around. How do we write questions and come up with a test that simulates that? Not too dissimilar from what we face, trying to wrestle with the performance-based questions that we see from companies like CompTIA and Cisco today. Yeah.
So, hey guys, and I may not have been clear on this. Tim is my boss at McGraw Hill. He is the guy. So anytime I'm writing a book or Scott and I are writing a book, Tim is the interface between us and McGraw Hill. Tim, how long have we been working together now?
Geez, Mike, it's been like 18 years.
It's been a while. It's been a while. So Tim's the guy when it comes to certifications in general. Hey, listen, guys, before we go any further, I just want to remind you guys, just because you were kind enough to show up today to discuss whatever topics are coming up today, and I didn't forget some of the questions I had from earlier. We are offering 50% off all of our A+ and Net+ Total Tester and Total Testers SIMS bundles and Security Plus Total Tester. So all you got to do is go to www.totalsim.com, head over to the merchant area, fill that cart with all that fat loot, and then enter the code STUDY 2020, STUDY 2020, and you get half off, which is ridiculous because A, we have the best practice questions in the industry, and B, we have the cheapest practice questions in the industry, at least of the good questions, and we're giving to you guys for 50% off. Our prices are insane. So do take advantage of that. Scott, can I impose on you, if you haven't already, put that up for everybody? Oh, you're a genius. Look at this. It's like you've done this before or something.
Right?
Yeah, so yeah, unfortunately, guys, for development stuff, we're probably not your source. We want you to get there. But for developer questions, probably not the best place to go. People are wondering, Tim, are you a former football player?
Am I a former football player?
This is a question that's being asked.
No, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and limited myself to alpine sports. So big skier, but never played football. Well, unless you're talking about European football, I do love soccer. And I played soccer a lot as a kid.
You and Scott, man.
Best game ever.
So hang on, Tim, we got a couple more questions here. 2:06 p.m. Forrest Rain. That's a new name, eh, Forrest? Hello, I am taking my Security Plus test next month, but I do not have experience in IT. Oh, brother. Do you have any advice on how to get in IT? Well, Forrest, Scott, was it 2 months ago we had Jessica Dickerson on talking about entry-level jobs in IT security? I was very pleased and surprised to see that there are quite a few companies who hire people entry-level. You don't need a Security Plus for a lot of these, although you'd probably be happier having it coming in. These are tough jobs. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. It's shift work, working midnight till 8 in the morning, monitoring real-time stuff for Amazon or one of the third-party vendors. But there is a surprisingly large amount of work out there, primarily in the US, but you folks in the EU also have similar opportunities like that. The trick is that you need to watch that video with Jessica Dickerson. And Scott, are you able to dig that one up for us and
I will
put it up on the chat so people can find it? So Forrest, there's plenty of work to be done. But Forrest, I'm very uncomfortable when people go straight into Security Plus. At the very least, in my opinion, you should probably be considering Network Plus. There's lots of questions on the Security Plus and just assume you know IPv4 and what is DHCP and what are ports and port forwarding and NAT and stuff like that. They don't even ask questions about that. They build on that. And we've had a few folks on here who have successfully went straight from 0 to Security Plus, but I don't know if I would recommend that for everybody. You should take a look at Network Plus. Network Plus is, in my opinion, the most important certification you'll never need. And when I say you'll never need it, you need it desperately, but you're not going to find tons of jobs out there that say Network Plus certification. But the one thing that CompTIA does an incredibly good job at is that they stay vendor neutral, or they try to, as most they can. Things like, if you want to learn DNS through Microsoft, you're going to go straight to Active Directory, and you're going to get a weird kind of biased attitude of what DNS is. If you want to get into VLANs and you go through a Cisco training, you're going to get a kind of a biased idea of what VLANs are. I'm not saying they're wrong. They're, of course, completely right. But the one thing that I got to give CompTIA a hand on in Network Plus is it really gives an amazing grounding on what you need to know to be a good tech in terms of networking technology that you simply can't find anyplace else. I find that people who take the Network Plus come out with the most satisfaction and understanding. You know, a lot of people come into these different types of certification training, and people know stuff. I mean, you know, you have to live in a vacuum not to be able to recognize an IPv4 address anymore. But Network Plus does an amazing job of filling in the blanks. And let me just recommend that to you. And I need to warn you, like, for example, with me and Scott, sorry, Scott, I'm doing this. Here, I want to keep looking at you like it's the Brady Bunch. There you go. I see you over here. There we go. Nice. Is that we just assume that you have a, if not Network Plus, pretty close to it. We don't rehash what is DHCP in the Security Plus. We just assume you know it. So again, we've seen people be very successful, and I don't want to turn you away, but do be aware that that's my opinion on it. All right, one more question. Tim, you're amazingly patient. Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, Tim, this is kind of the format here. There's a lot of me looking over here, looking for questions. So.
One thing I'll add to that last question is, you know, CompTIA does a good job publishing on their website prerequisites. They don't require that you take A+ or Network Plus, but you know, their recommendations on experience, on the job experience, on what exams you might take previously, you know, they've done a good job mapping out their lifelong learning approach, and it's worth taking a look at that if you haven't, for those out there looking at how to get started. At least they've done a better job of that than most of the other certifying bodies out there that
I'll give them that. Absolutely, it's true. Web Dev Bootcamp, 2:08 p.m. What is a memory channel? When it comes to memory channels, is it really how RAMs are installed on the board, or is it the motherboard circuits? Well, it's both. Back in the old days, when you had a memory controller chip, which was separate from the CPU, the memory controller chip determined how you accessed your RAM. Most sticks of RAM out there, if we look at DDR4, that's a 64-bit wide pathway. But with memory channels, you can have a 128-bit pathway, so why not put 2 sticks of RAM in there, and then you can connect to a lot more RAM. So that's where we get into what we used to call dual channel. Is it still called dual channel, Scott? Or I guess it's dual channel. In fact, there was for a time there, kids, there was even triple channel. Scott, remember that?
There still is.
Is it still out there? Okay. So it's just a way to allow the CPU to connect that stuff. The problem is most CPUs out there today are only designed to be able to connect to a maximum of 4 DIMM chips at a time. And it's not any law of physics. It's just that right now they figure, you know, with 4 slots, I can address easily 64 gigabytes of RAM, and that's plenty for everybody. And you'd have to start getting into some of the Threadrippers or Itaniums or something like that to see motherboards where you have more than 4 slots. And that's simply because the CPUs have addressability channels to talk to more than that. Man, see, this is one of these questions where I wish I could go beep, 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 and pull out my PowerPoint on memory channels and all that stuff. Let's hang on to that one. Okay. So the answer I gave you is great, but there's a lot more detail to that. So maybe we ought to do a memory channel. Remember, this came up earlier, Scott. Do you remember? Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
People were talking about T versus inline memory channels with all these overclockers, and I was like, just say no, kids. But tell you what, we will talk about that possibly next week. Let's see what happens. So Web Dev Bootcamp, bear with me, man. Let me put together a proper presentation on that. And I've got it written down, and worse than that, I've told Scott Jernigan. So now I'm stuck.
Forever.
Forever.
So Charles had a question at 207 that we jumped over.
I'm sorry.
That he said, does the CompTIA ITF Plus have tricky questions like the Cert Master practice tests?
Well, I'm going to have to defer to two people who are far better than me at IT fundamentals, and that would be Tim Green and Scott Jernigan. Tim?
Ooh, you know, it's funny to call something a trick question is potentially tricky in and of itself. You know, the exam developers work really hard, especially, you know, when we're looking at ANSI accredited or ISO accredited exams, not to create test items that are tricky, so to speak. So, you know, I would say one thing to remember too, when you take these tests is not all of the tests are actually being scored. I mean, all of the items are being scored. You may be getting questions on your test that are in the test pool because CompTIA in this example is testing them out from a psychometric standpoint to see if they're valid.
Good questions.
And I think that, you know, I think that, you know, as someone who's been helping people prepare for tests for many, many years, you know, you kind of want to triage, you know, how you interact with difficult or tricky questions. I'm not saying that you should ever just ignore a question, but if you hit a question on a test and you're feeling like it's trying to trick you, it might be good to you know, move on if you don't come to an immediate answer, and stay focused on the questions that you really feel comfortable answering. But my real answer to what do you do about tricky questions is practice, practice, practice. I think the more time you spend going through and taking practice exams, you know, it's great to do training, it's great to read books, but the practice exams are really what are going to help you build test confidence on test day. That will allow you to decide, should I really take the time to answer this question if I'm not sure? You know, is it tricky? Is it just difficult? I think it's practice that will really give you the confidence to know whether or not it's worth taking a little bit of extra time to figure out a tricky or difficult question, or whether you should just skip it and move on. I'd love to hear what you think, Scott.
Well, and
you can speak more to ITF specifically.
Right. The specific questions that I saw on ITF Plus, and that people have not reported to me on the exam, are pretty straightforward if you've done your homework. The things that seem tricky, they might throw in some scenario type stuff, but just cut through the scenario and look at what the actual question is, and then it's going to be a factual type thing. So yeah, sometimes the wording on CompTIA questions gets in the way, but that just learning how to parse CompTIA questions, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
I'd say that's true for almost any certification. You know, years ago, well, not that many years ago, when we were moving our test bank online, we would have people take our practice questions for free in order for them to critique them. And we would get this all the time. People are like, oh, these are trick questions or da-da-da and all this. And it was nice because I could literally double check the questions and look at them and then talk to the person and go, did you not read answer B? And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. So I feel a lot of times when you're looking at a tricky question, it's not so much tricky, but what I talk about all the time is that people will get hooked on one set of practice questions. And when you write a novel, you have a voice. I can tell you an Ernest Hemingway novel within about 3 sentences of reading it. And unfortunately, question writers do the same thing. They get a voice to their questions. And if you only listen to one voice, when you go take the actual exam, suddenly it's not that the questions are different, they're just in a different voice. And it drives people insane. So that's why I always tell people, you should always get 2 sets of practice questions. Honestly, Tim, that's part of the reason I have Robert Abernathy on, because I do recommend to people that if you're not going to buy our questions, you should also get Cyber Vista, because Robin writes great questions. And that's definitely the 2 restaurants on the same street kind of attitude. But
data shows people use multiple exams and multiple forms. So I think that's just
good.
nice.
Good, they should, because we try really hard at Total not to put too much voice into the questions or to try to mimic. I'm convinced there's exactly 3 question writers at CompTIA just by the voice of the questions, but I can't prove that, of course. But I think it's very, very important.
Well, it is worth noting too that if there are tricky or trick questions on the test, they'll tend to get invalidated through psychometric data over time and get pulled out of the pool.
Right.
The vendors really do take seriously. They don't want trick questions on their tests.
They do not. They get a lot of trouble on it. You'd be surprised, well, not you or Tim or Scott, but you guys would be surprised how much people will complain, sometimes virulently, about the quality of questions and things like that. And CompTIA has a place to receive those types of issues and questions, and they definitely work it out. All right, well, Tim, I don't know how long you're going to be here, so I want to steal you. We're going to put the questions to the side for a minute. So, Scott, we're going to stop at around 2:15. Is that okay? And so, Tim, I just want to throw a couple of questions at you. And again, Tim, take this any direction you want. I don't care. In fact, you can change the topic completely. But one of the questions I have is, why books in 2020?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I was looking at some data earlier today, and it definitely looks like people's preferences are shifting slightly between print and ebook, meaning more people during the pandemic are choosing to get ebooks over print books. Now that could just be, maybe their local independent bookseller or their local Barnes and Noble isn't open and they don't have access, or they their shelves at home are filled up. I wouldn't know what that was like, but I think I referenced that global knowledge report earlier today. Books are a great supplemental form of training. I know for myself, when I look at the books that we publish outside of our textbooks, we refer to as self-study materials. They're great because they're self-paced. Your book is going to sit there and you use it when and how you want. You can write on it. Books are incredibly versatile, and especially when we get to talking about lifelong learning, whether you're a beginner, whether you're intermediate, whether you're advanced, our authors and you guys, I think, are 2 of the best at this in the industry. Put a lot of thought in how to make their content more discoverable or more more available to anybody at any level. Meaning, if I'm somebody who's been in the IT industry for 20 years and I really know my stuff and I just need to renew my certification, I'm going to get as much out of using your all-in-one exam guide, Mike, as I am if I'm a beginner. Because you've done a lot of hard work through how you've arranged it to help me find what I need to know, and whether it's using the index, whether it's using the table of contents, whether it's looking at the headers at the front of each chapter that show me what's going to be covered in there, to the fact that we put a lot of time in to create these exam maps that show exactly where every objective on the test is covered. Books really allow you more freedom to put together your own personal study plan. And I think the pandemic hasn't changed that. And, you can set your book on your lap, you can move it around. I know a lot of people prefer ebooks or moving towards ebooks, but I think it's that self-study versatility and that supplemental nature that makes books really attractive to people. And that's not going to go away.
So I was actually curious, Tim, what would you say is percentage-wise? Let's pick A+ as an example. What percentage of A+ books sold by McGraw Hill are ebook versus physical book?
That's a great question. I don't know exactly the answer. It's somewhere between 10 and 20% and growing. So it's a smaller subset. I remember back maybe a decade ago, everybody thought that print books were dead and it was all ebooks this and ebooks that, and ebooks are going to dominate the world in the future. And we haven't seen that happen. Again, back to preference. I think some people like ebooks and they want ebooks. Some people love their Kindles. Some people love their Kobos or their Nooks. A lot of people love the feel and the smell of an old print book. It's really a matter of preference. But the numbers for ebooks are, they're not huge. We still, print is still the dominant factor, but whether we're talking about, because your books are available on online book aggregator sites like O'Reilly Library or Skillsoft. A lot of people love electronic books because they can get access to them through collections. They're more versatile in that regard. So it's a hard question to answer because, do we count Skillsoft and O'Reilly Library? Do we just count the Kindle, and Apple Books of the world? But
my brain hurts. My brain hurts.
10 to 20%, Mike. 10 to 20%.
All right, so Tim, let's have a little fun. We do little competitions every now and then. These competitions, we're about to do a competition right now, Tim. These competitions are completely unfair. But what I would ask you to do, Tim, and since this is we're going to do a competition based on your opinion, anything you say will be right. Tim Green, what do you think the average number of technical books are in this is your opinion, whatever this is, the Classic Nerds Library? Don't say the number yet, okay? Don't say it. Think about that for a minute and just pick a number. Okay, guys, here's the competition. Tim Green is about to pick an arbitrary number, which I'm hoping is under 100. And whoever gets closest to what Tim Green says the number is wins. Now, obviously, you guys have to put your numbers down before Tim says it. So Tim, close your eyes. Well, you can't see the chat line anyhow. You're okay. So you guys ready? I need you to give us a number. What do you guys think is the average number of books that physical paper books, let's make it easier. How many paper books do you have? Because I think all you guys are typical nerds. Whoever is closest to what Tim Green thinks is right wins. Now, Tim cannot see the chat. So let's start typing in some numbers. You guys ready? Oh, they're typing in lots of numbers, Tim. Let's give it, Tim, let's just count to 10 here.
Cue Jeopardy music.
Oh, come on, Daniel, 158, seriously? I totally pooched it for Daniel, I'm sorry.
That was unbiased. I'm unbiased. I remain unbiased.
So Tim, do you have a number?
I do indeed.
All right, we've got about 40 or 50 answers here. Tim, what do you think the average number? Oh, it's going to be closest based on the way I calculate closest, okay? So this ain't Price is Right, all right?
Okay.
So Tim, what do you think? Give me the number. I'm ready.
It's going to vary so much by your job role, but I came up in my head with the number 24.
Ooh. Oh, let me make sure nobody hit 24 exactly. We got a bunch of folks close. But literally the first person to respond, second person to respond was Connor Wellman. Connor, you said 25. So dude, you win 180 or 90-day access, whatever Kathy's doing, of either A+, Net Plus, or Security Plus practice questions on the Total Tester. Connor, in order to receive your prize, you have to send an email to kathy@totalsim.com. Let her know that you were a winner today and tell her which one you want. You've got to send her an email. Your email is actually your log on for the Total Tester. So Connor William, congratulations to you, sir. Big round of applause. Well done. And to everybody, Alan Duggan, 1,000. He's looking at my selection back here.
Well, and developers, geez, I've seen some developers, since we were talking about developers earlier, that their whole house is full of books.
It is funny. I always worry. And guys, answer yes or no to this. How many of you guys type yes or no? I believe in books or I don't believe in books. I'm very curious. Guys, type it in the live chat, please. Yes, if you believe in books, no, if you don't. I'm really curious. Because I always worry that, in today's environment, Tim, I hate, wow, okay. Gerald Clark, get out of here. Okay, we only have one. I'm teasing you, Gerald, please stay. And Chris Arkwright. So we had a couple of folks say no, but the vast majority still believe in books. Tim, what do you think is probably one of the bigger challenges as a book publisher moving up past 2020?
Well, Mike, you and I have talked about this in the past, and as much as I am a book publisher and I work for one of the oldest, most established book publishers in the US, I consider myself a content developer. We actively are seeking to license our content. You know, I want the content that I create to, and the authors that I work with to create versatile content that, you know, can be put, you know, in all sorts of different containers, if I can use that word, you know, whether it be e-learning, you know, I mean, geez, as you guys know, one of the biggest challenges of publishing and writing certification books is you're not just writing training materials, you're having to develop test questions, from lab simulations, you know, to the videos that you guys create. You know, we want to develop content that's versatile, that can be ported out into whatever form a learner or a student wants to consume. And, you know, I would say one of the biggest challenges is experimentation and piloting new approaches to finding different alternative ways to, you know, get our content into the hands of people in ways that helps them, you know, not just pass their test, because, you know, as I know all three of us are really, you know, feel strongly about, it's as much about on the job performance. I mean, our goal is really to help people get better jobs, get paid better, and move on up. You know, it really is about lifelong success and, you know, let's face it, we still have a severe job shortage, not just skills gaps in the US as far as our IT labor force, and you know, cybersecurity in particular. There are a lot more unfilled jobs in a lot of other areas of IT, and we want versatile content that, you know, is adaptable. You know, figuring out labs, that's probably the biggest challenge. I think that a lot of the traditional content or book publishers are facing. You know, how do you make books be a better vehicle for the online stuff? I think the Total Training Hub is a great solution. Learning management systems are a way to do that. But my answer to your question is experimentation. You know, the convergence between print and digital. And but I don't just see myself as a book publisher. I'm really, you know.
Cool. And we have talked about that before. I mean, it's a slightly loaded question, Tim. And
no, but I think it's useful. And I mean, you know, this is a great venue to get feedback from people, you know, and I think preference, back to my point about preference earlier, you know, I think there's a reason that people use a lot of different formats when they're prepping for a test or when they're trying to learn something, you know, on the job. And I think that's something that will continue, and content developers and publishers are going to have to continue to innovate to meet those needs and those preferences.
Yeah, I mean, I worry because I use a lot of books.
Yeah.
But I'm worried I'm an old geezer. You know what I mean? So that's why I ask the gang a lot of times what they're saying, because it helps. Although Andre is old, but you know, ignore him. He's from Belgium. Don't worry about it. And Andre's not from Belgium. I've been teasing him for ages about that. Belgium, Netherlands, same country. Come on, Andre, you got to respond to that one, brother. Chris Arkwright said something kind of funny. He said, books exist whether you believe in them or not. Chris Arkwright, this cup of coffee is for you.
I bit my tongue on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was a question directly. There are several questions that have gone straight to Tim.
Yeah, I can't see the chat, Scott. So if you
go ahead, Scott, drive for a little bit, brother.
213 Alan Duggan asked, "Hey Tim, what have been the biggest challenges you've faced in the IT area or arena?"
Oof.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because it goes right back to that developer level question. How to break into the upper echelons, whether it be in networking and looking at something, you know, like CCIE, or looking at the higher level, you know, solution developer type stuff. But I think probably one of the single greatest challenges I've faced in my career was actually on a Linux project. And it was my best-selling Linux book. And I'll never forget coming to work one day and getting an email from my Linux author letting me know that Red Hat had decided to abolish multiple choice exams. And we all went, how do we prepare people for tests that, what are they doing? You know,
but they were all performance based.
Yeah, Red Hat still continues to be all performance based. It's a lab practicum. You literally have to sit down and do the job for a period of time. And you know, it was the first time that we really figured out how to create. We use a version of Scientific Linux. to create virtual machine files so that our readers can build the labs as they go and really learn how to do it. It was I remember my mind exploding as we tried to figure it out, but the benefit of it really drove home the benefit of hands-on learning. And I'd say that hands-on learning, performance-based testing continue to be, so important. The validity of a test is going to be so much greater if you're a hiring manager, if you know that folks actually know how to do stuff. For those of us who've been around for a long time, we remember the whole paper MCSE. A lot of Microsoft certification program got kind of a bad rep for the tests were too easy. Anybody could just sit down and test them. But, figuring out how to, after learning how to do multiple choice tests, figuring out how to simulate as best we could a complete practical, hands-on test experience was a real challenge. And Red Hat just announced they're rolling out a at-home lab testing solution, which I was excited to see, since a lot of test centers worldwide are still not open.
It is interesting. I mean, CCIE, of course, for the last 20 years has been completely performance-based.
Right.
And that's with real hardware.
Yep.
This is the first time I've ever heard that, Tim. That was very new information for me. Please don't tell me that was 8 years ago, okay?
Well, it was a lot longer than that.
Oh my God.
Okay, so here's another question for you, Tim. I've heard this from Dave. I've heard stories from the past about Tim faxing images of threatening equipment like hammers. True?
No, not true. That's not true. I will admit there was a point where I did email Mike a picture of a cattle prod. So I'm not gonna lie. I guess that would count as threatening equipment, but it was a joke. I would never use a cattle prod on one of my authors.
That's heartening.
Well, one of the things I love about working with Mike and working with Scott is, we manage, even though it's tough and it gets tense at times, we manage to have fun. And, you got to be careful with your threatening images.
So guys, Tim's worked with me for so long that he knows me a little bit too well. And so do you remember there was some comedian years ago and it was like the 6 stages of death? You guys ever hear this?
No,
well, the first one was like denial, and it eventually goes to acceptance. And I need to write out or make a video on the 5 stages of Tim Green.
That's just called writing books. Yes.
Yeah, faster. Write the books faster. Write well and live.
One of Tim's questions as we get deeper into projects is there anything I can do for you? Anything you need? Right. And so for the last A+ book, I was like, yeah, I need a new Ferrari. And Tim's like, I'll see what I can do. So we finished the book and in comes the mail, right? A couple of days later.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a little toy Ferrari. And I'm like, oh, you rat. You took me seriously, but it's not big enough.
Of course, I screwed up. I tried the same thing, but I told Tim that I wanted a Toyota. Do we have more questions, Scott, for Tim?
Not specifically. There are a whole bunch of questions on other topics.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, dig into the geek stuff. I think that's what people want to hear more than I.
So, Tim, one thing I tell everybody is when a new test comes out, and this isn't unique to CompTIA, this is anything.
Yeah.
When a new test comes out, I always tell people that there's this overlap window where the old test and the new test are available.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, for crying out loud, do not take the new test if you can still take the old test.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you why, although I think it's obvious. How do you feel about that strategy?
Well, it's a really important thing to kind of tease out, especially given that it's so radically different with different certifying bodies. CompTIA makes it easy to talk about stuff like that because they have pretty well established habits and policies on what they do. But there are a lot of other certifying bodies who will literally just retire a test one day and roll out a new test the next day.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
that makes it really challenging for people, who want to get prepared, who need to know. I mean, this is where, book publishers play a really important a role sometimes, because honestly, I've had some people and customers tell me over the years, I didn't even know that there was a new test until I saw your new edition out there. And I think, so let's just circle back to CompTIA. CompTIA is interesting, because they do have this specific overlap that's well advertised, that's understood. You have X amount of months before the old test, but where it really gets challenging, Mike, is, it depends on where you are in your own certification life cycle. Are you just looking to get continuing education credits to maintain your certification? Do you want to take the new test because you're looking to demonstrate, I'm really keeping up with stuff, I know what's new, I know what's hot? And, I think each individual kind of has to look at where they are in their own process. If they're just starting out and they're, a brand new beginner and this is the first time they're ever sitting for their test, I would agree with you. The right thing to do is to wait. But I think if for somebody who's, about to lose their certification because they haven't been maintaining their continuing education credits, they may need to take the test as quickly as possible just to maintain their certification. So, you really have to understand the recertification requirements of the certifying body that you're certified under, and that doesn't just hold for IT certifications. A lot of folks in IT are starting to realize that there's value to, say, having a project management certification. I keep mentioning that global knowledge survey report, but one of the most interesting things in that was this new crossover section where they looked at how much more successful people are who, say, have like a PMP certification or a CAPM certification in addition to their cybersecurity certifications. You really, and some of these certifications, especially project management, have really in-depth CISSP, same way, really in-depth, kind of overwhelming even requirements to recertify. So, my advice to people, to certification candidates, is make sure you do your homework. Spend the time, really understand the recertification requirements, and then you'll be able to better make a decision on, do I wait for a new test? Do I take the old one? So complicated answer, but it's a complicated a question.
All right. So Tim, I had another question, which I answered, but I'm very interested in your opinion. And I realize some of these questions you can't answer, so I'm going to be careful here.
Okay.
Project Plus or CEH? Which one's better?
Well, they're very different. CEH is pen testing. Again, I think.
No, I'm sorry. Pen Test Plus.
Pen Test Plus or CEH.
Sorry, Tim. Pen Test Plus or CEH.
If I don't know if there are any CompTIA people on the line, but I actually got to tip my hat. I've been a big backer of a lot of CompTIA certifications that, ended up not really finding their place in the market. RFID Plus, HTI Plus, which I loved and still am sad.
RFID Plus.
Yeah, and I think that I tip my hat to CompTIA on both Pen Test Plus and CYSA Plus. I think they've actually created really valuable exams. I happen to be the publisher of the best-selling CEH book, so I'm a little bit biased on this front, but so far looks like we also have one of the best-selling books on Pen Test Plus. So,
Excellent.
I think Pen Test Plus is newer, but CompTIA is doing a great job advertising it, getting it out there, and I think, in the end, it'll be really interesting to see, does it rise up and continue to compete effectively against things like CEH? But, you look at penetration testing, the GIAC program has a great pen test exam. The cybersecurity certification market's getting a little bit crowded, so you have a lot of options. And I think looking at the program that you have the most affinity for makes a lot of sense. So if you're someone who's really spent a lot of time investing in A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, I think sticking with Pen Test Plus is a great idea because it's a known quantity.
So that's always been a challenge for me, is that as you progress outside, well, traditionally,
Yeah.
Security Plus was, in my opinion, for a long time, the terminal certification for CompTIA. That's my opinion.
Okay.
And this is before CYSA, CASP, pen test. But then the thing I would tell people is that you got to be really careful once you go past Security Plus, because now you're talking about arguably 4 to 7 different certifying bodies who all hate each other's guts, who are literally vying for your certification dollars. And you can't just start up a GIAC and then decide to go with ISACA. What's the right way to pronounce
Saga,
that?
that's correct. Yeah.
And you can't go halfway up one and then jump over without a substantial cost in time and money. And which I still think is true, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think people should be allowed into certification without a handbook. Hey, Tim, you want me to write it? I'm kidding. But
well,
I do think that that's a real challenge, especially somebody who's coming in new. The nice part is that CompTIA is a kind of a nice little nursery for baby techs, with the A+, Net+, Security Plus pathway. But, once you get past that, there be dragons.
It's true.
And I just think people need to be careful.
It's true. The other thing I would add on to that is, one of the ways that CompTIA has really distinguished themselves is they spend more time rigorously mapping their certifications to job roles. So I think once you get beyond Security Plus, and you're moving into more of the expert level certifications, it's really important to understand your job role or the job role you're looking to move into. And then it's worth taking the time, look at the EC Council stuff, look at the SANS certifications. You can look at these certification objectives and make a decision for yourself. Is job-based certification the right way to go? CISSP is such a monster as far as what all the domains cover that it doesn't really enter into this. But I think, if you want to get into penetration testing and you're serious about it, really think hard about the job role and then take a look at the objectives and make a decision on what you think is the closest to the job role, because it is definitely the case that when a hiring manager looks at a resume, they don't necessarily look at CEH and, let's say, SANS GIAC and think of them in the same way. SANS has been around for a long time. I'm not saying that you're going to get more recognition for a GIAC certification, but again, really understand the job role, and I think you'll be able to make a better decision. Because I think CEH is a good exam. They've done a pretty good job keeping it relevant. I do like how rigorously Pen Test Plus is mapped to the job role, though. I gotta say.
I'm just thinking, Scott Jernigan. I was just thinking that another video we really ought to consider doing. In fact, Tim, I probably wouldn't mind having you come back online for something like this, is to do a video that really discusses for folks is that, so you want to get into security and really talk about the EC Council path, the GIAC path, the ISACA path, all of these different ones, and to try to maybe not make a judgment on it, but at least let people be aware,
Yeah.
It's great that people go from Security Plus straight into more advanced CompTIA securities, but I would be nervous if I were a person out there today looking for certifications and not being aware of these very competitive organizations that, like you said, Tim, who are kind of, it's a little clogged up right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree with what you said. And because that's a lot of money for people to put down for, people complain about CompTIA certs. Wait till you check out GIAC, dude. I mean, it's, there are 4-figure certifications out there, kids, that you can fail. So, you want to get this stuff right. And so would you be willing to maybe consider coming in on something like that with us, Tim?
Yeah, although, while I used to really cover all the security stuff, actually, there may be another editor on staff that might be more of the right person, and since you said you were willing to have Don Dunkerley on, Don would be a great person to talk about that with as well.
Oh, I would love to have Dawn on. Man, what a wonderful security person too. I guarantee you these guys would eat that up.
Yeah.
So Dawn wrote the Security Plus Passport, right?
That's right.
And is a well-established security professional and would be someone, yes. Here, Tim, watch this.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I'll connect you guys tomorrow.
Please, I would like that very, very much. That would be a lot of fun.
But yeah, if you wanted like the publisher point of view on cybersecurity, either I or my boss Wendy Rinaldi, who actually heads up our cybersecurity list now, and has really built out our program in an amazing way. She'd be the one to have on to talk about that.
Cool.
Oh, so Tim, let's all say hi to Robin Abernathy, who's actually listening in today.
Hi, Robin.
And Robin wants to be also involved in our GIAC and ISACA products. Robin, you're in, kid. We'll have a big Zoom meeting with a bunch of eggheads around. Tim, is that okay?
Of course.
Okay. It's always so funny. I like having competitors around. I've been dying to get Jason Dion on here, who is a competitor, but he makes some great video products. And I never worry about that stuff. I don't know. I like the fact that there are other people doing CompTIA training products, mainly because who is my primary competitor in the book market? I cannot. Jean.
Well, on the text,
Dr. Jean Andrews.
Jean Andrews, yeah.
She writes some good books. They're very different than mine, though, and you can see how it appeals to a very different audience. And I just think that makes it better because it gives you guys a choice, right? Because you start to, everybody has a different style. I'm all nerd all the time. And Dr. Andrews is more of a educator, and worries about the pathways and all that stuff, which I don't know what that is, I just want to talk about, turn the screw this way, pull out the rem and put it in.
I have a lot of great memories of you photo bombing Gene at different CompTIA events, and I think it's your credit, Mike, that you are collegial. Because I agree with you. We're all in the business for the same reason, and that is to help educate people, to help people get better jobs. To serve the industry, and something I've always appreciated about you. And in fact, I find it inspiring because that's not how a lot of people behave.
Well, it is a very nerd thing.
It is.
I don't know, Tim, you ever seen my 10 Commandments video?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things about the 10 Commandments videos, I think it's commandment number 6, and that is, pay it forward. Mm-hmm. And so many nerds find themselves in a niche place, and they want to make their own priesthood, and they want to lock around whatever that knowledge thing is. And it's not the way to go. If there's going to be great people under you that are going to pass you, let them pass you. You'll have a friend. And I don't know. It's a different universe. I have a strange philosophy on this, to say the least. Scott, are we missing any questions? I know we keep talking so much. I'm terrified.
Absolutely, we're missing questions. I'll bring up a couple of them specifically for Tim before we can get to the hardcore tech things that we can jump back to shortly.
Yeah, I'm good for maybe another 10 or 15 minutes, and then unfortunately I got to jump on.
That's fine, Tim. Hey, Tim, if you got to go, just say bye.
No,
I'm
good for another 15, but then I got to prep for a meeting.
Fair enough.
So question came up on ITIL certifications, ITIL. And do you have a book, which I know you do? And what do you think about it?
ITIL is interesting. It's a framework. A lot of people, I think its prominence has definitely increased. I'm not going to lie that the certifying body behind ITL is not my favorite as far as how they interact with the market, but there's no disputing the value of ITIL certification or the framework actually. So yeah, I think make sure you understand what you're getting into, though. Back to my earlier comments about job role and job based. It's not for everyone, and it's not it's not a certification that I would say is extremely versatile, meaning it really is there to certify specific, job roles, job behaviors. It's not for everybody. But I think if it falls under your remit to do a lot of the things that the framework is designed to help you manage, obviously it's an incredibly valuable and important certification that continues to just grow in popularity. Okay,
cool. So here's another one. And this is from actually just a couple minutes ago. Nice Try No Cigar. I was wondering if Tim has any extra insight into CompTIA's marketing criteria or scheme, or why they keep it shrouded in secrecy.
Not quite sure about marketing scheme and exactly what that means. I joke sometimes with, I first, for disclosure, I have to say I'm a CompTIA partner. I have a lot of respect for CompTIA, and I joke with some of my partner contacts at CompTIA that I actually have more institutional memory about CompTIA than most of the people that work there. They've gone through a lot of changes over the years, and different leaders have tried to take them in different directions. I give them a lot of credit for the outreach and the work that they've done with the National Institutes for Standards and Technology. They've made huge investments in keeping, their certifications relevant. I tip my hat to them for their experimentation, even though some things haven't worked. They've found other ways to bring value to the market. But I can't really comment, on their current marketing activities, primarily because I don't keep track of what they're doing. We try to stay pretty focused on what we're doing, but again, I am a CompTIA partner, so.
Be careful about what you say there, eh?
Right.
Absolutely. This is why it's always surprises me people let me do an AMA, because well, Scott Jernigan actually has, Tim, just so you know, Scott has a button, right? So in the 10-second pause between I talk and actually hits on the live stream, like you used to watch Jay Leno or whatever it was. And oh my goodness.
No, I'm just kidding, Mike. Of course, I would never mute you or bleep you.
I know. Do you guys ever watch Whose Line Is It Anyway? Mm-hmm. And the guy goes, "Do you want to see both of my hands become fuzzy?" And he, it was pretty funny. We won't recreate that here. Robin Abernathy is watching, and got to be careful. Well, listen, Tim, thank you so much for showing up. I really do appreciate it, man. It's can I drag you back sometime? Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be busy, so it probably wouldn't be until the new year, but I like your idea about the cybersecurity stuff. I may make a brief guest appearance when you have Dawn on. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I mean, like I've told you, I just, thanks to you, and I don't just mean as a McGraw Hill author, but as someone who is devoted. No author that I've ever worked with is more devoted to their audience and to their fellow geeks and nerds than you, Mike. And for you to make the effort to be there to ask people questions, especially at a time of great economic and social upheaval is awesome. So thank you for having me. Thanks for doing these Ask Mike sessions, and it was a pleasure to be here, and nice to meet everyone virtually, and thanks for your questions.
All right, Tim.
Excellent.
Well, thank you very much, man. Be good. I guess I'll be talking to you Friday, huh?
Yep, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Tim. And he's gone. That was fascinating, didn't you, Scott? I just, you don't really get to see the certification game from his side of the street very often,
Right. It's very different. And he, of course, missed Patricia's comment. Like, "Hi, Tim, we've heard all sorts of rumors about you. You look totally normal, though."
He's wearing clown shoes, for the record, but that's.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
All right, so
that's off. Do you want to go back to the questions?
Let's go back to some questions. I got about 30 minutes of presentation on Kerberos, and split horizon. But I see there's been a bunch of questions. Guys, I apologize. With Tim talking, I may have skipped some questions. So don't be afraid to throw those questions right back in. I'm up to 304 now. Scott, do you have any like in queue that you're ready to go with, brother?
There were Abdel Torres from way back 215, where we left off on the questions, was asking about the current Network Plus exam. How much does it differ from the previous exam?
Substantially. You know, people are, well, what's happening here in Gilbert, Gilbert, right?
Abdel.
Abdel, sorry, Abdel. The challenge you run into is, you know, somebody bought an old book and now they want to see if this old book's going to work with their new stuff. In general, you can't do that. And look, it's not me trying to sell you another book, man, all right? I don't really have a problem using an older book if it works. There have been maybe 3 or 4 updates across the A+, Net+, Security Plus world where you could have got away with that. But no, most of the time the changes are dramatic.
It's just
the world of IT is changing very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, IT is changing so fast. It's like, you know, what a network tech is today as opposed to 3 years ago is a vastly different skill set.
I agree.
So,
hey, Scott, I see a question way back at, way back. Chris Arkwright at 3:03 p.m., which I believe he asked this question before. In your humble opinion, which is all that my opinion is humble, is it worth taking the beta exams when available? Why or why not? Generally, yes. I like taking beta exams. It's not just for CompTIA. They're dirt cheap, which is a good deal. There's been more than one time they've been free, right? Yeah, so that's reason number one to take them is price. And the other thing, in my opinion, is that they score more lightly on beta exams than they do when the actual exam comes out. And if you can score an A+ or a Net+ or a Security Plus taking an exam for free, then I'd say go for it. The downside to a beta exam is that the questions, well, they blow beats. I mean, they're terrible. And that's part of the reason why they're a beta. And they're trying to dump the bad questions and get all the challenges and stuff like that. But yeah, I would take a beta. Scott, you got anything to add to that, brother?
No, and even, I mean, the beta exams are generally what, half the price or less. I mean, and it's still the same certification. So why not? You know, even if you don't pass, you'll be more prepared for when you take the for real exam. So it's a win-win in my book.
Fair enough. So Web Dev Bootcamp at 3:04. Wait, is that why Mike keeps saying Timmy? That predates Tim Green, and I've known him for 17 years. The whole Timmy thing came out because you're always, when you're working on a system, you're always making some temporary folder, and everybody and their dog calls that folder temp.
Right.
And I just wanted to make something different, because not only do people make a folder or an SSID or something called temp, then they forget to delete it, which always drove me nuts, because I would go walk up to somebody's system I wanted to work on. Here's this folder called temp hanging off the system 32 folder. And I'm like, can I delete this? It's full of crap. And I'm always like, yeah, I'm afraid to. So the whole Timmy thing came out because I wanted to use an alternative name. And anytime you run into a system I've worked on and there's a folder, or if there's an SSID, or if there's a whatever, a configuration, hardware configuration called Timmy, that means it's temporary and feel free to delete it. That's the whole reason that came out years ago.
So even before then, there was quite a bit of chat in the live stream while you and Tim were talking with suggestions for you doing an IT career day. In other words, going over, say, a dozen IT areas, what qualifications would there be? What certifications should you pursue to be able to get into that career? Whether that career is more physical based or typewriter based or whatever. Typewriter. Wow, I just dated myself.
Wow, you did. I didn't want to say anything.
So, but you having an actual career day, and I responded and said, I would ask you.
Well, the only thing I'm going to say in response to that is, send me an email and let me see what you're talking about there. The challenge I run into with that kind of a career day is, unfortunately, like when you first said to me, Scott, I'm like, can I bring on hiring managers for different types of agencies that we know? The problem is they hate each other. They really hate each other, and it would get ugly, to say the least. So for those of you who are asking, send me an email at michaelm@totalsim.com. See it right there, and we'll see what we can do. You never know. I'm not saying no to anything at this point in the game. Oh, I do not know how to use Zoom at all. I'm stuck in a shared screen.
That's all right. They can't see me until I start talking. And now they just see me because you aren't talking. When
I tell you I am stuck, Scott, oh, did that do it?
That did it.
Am I unstuck? Oh, good Lord. All right. Okay, guys. No, career day would be fine, but I'd like a little more details, at least in terms of what you want. So I heard what Scott said, but the problem is talking like this, unless I write it down. No, here, I'll give it a fair shot. I still remember back in the late 80s when they were talking about paperless offices, and here's me scribbling things on thank you notes, and it's pretty sad. I just need a pad of paper, and I'll be good. All right, guys, so I think we're in pretty good shape here. I hope you guys enjoyed having Tim Green. Tim Green is my and Scott's editor and has been for almost 20 years. I've known Tim for a long time, and he is now an executive editor at McGraw Hill, and he's got a lot of power in terms of what he allows in terms of books and training products to go out, and to have him sneak in was a good thing. All right, so Scott, we're starting to see some more questions run in. Thought it was Brendan S. I thought it was South Park Timmy. Charles Druin at 310. Do you guys know if bias becomes obsolete by the creation of UEFI? Yeah, 6 years ago. But isn't UEFI still bias, just a better version of it? It's so funny, man. Scott, do you remember when UEFI started to pop up and you could boot into a built-in browser on some biases? Do you remember that?
Sure.
I always wonder why they didn't go with that a little bit deeper. To me, that seemed like a really good idea. The power of UEFI is that by breaking the 16-bit limit, you really had a lot more opportunity in terms of memory space, storage access, things like that, to really do some cool stuff. And when UEFI started really popping, maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little less than that, saw some really creative stuff, and it's all disappeared. Now UEFI is what?
Just a BIOS with a mouse.
And it's a boot manager.
Yeah.
So. But yes,
but it
to me, UEFI is still biased. Now, this is a terminology thing, so you got to be careful. To me, UEFI is still biased. It's just much, much better and much more powerful.
So, and let me riff on that a little bit. I would say it accomplishes the same thing as BIOS, in that it is the lizard brain of the PC. It's the part that in theory doesn't change and enables you to start layering all the other pieces on, and they can communicate.
So Scott, here's another really interesting question, which came from, where'd it go? Kevin Lopez at 313. Bring in one of your CIA cybersecurity friends for us to interview. Don't know anybody at the CIA, but I do have some FBI connections. probably DEA wouldn't be that good. I don't even think DEA does cybersecurity, but FBI does. And
I just got finished teaching right before the lockdown a cybersecurity class. It was intro to networking, but we went into a lot of security at the DEA.
But that was more for DEA, right?
Right.
So DEA is more about, putting up hiding cameras or they find cocaine on a ship and they pull one bag out and they put a perfect copy of a cocaine bag with a tracker in it because they want to see where it's going and stuff like that. It's exciting, but I wouldn't necessarily call it classic cybersecurity. The FBI, on the other hand,
yeah.
But for the FBI, it's going to be forensics, right? That's really where their bread is buttered. And something naughty has happened, and then people have to go in and use NCASE or one of these forensic tools to look at a bad guy's system to find naughtiness.
Right.
And so I guess technically both of those are cybersecurity, but I would consider them to be very, very specialized areas. But I can tell you, I know that every FBI agent in the country is required as part of their job description to have a community outreach. And most FBI agents are scrambling to find somebody to talk to. And they usually get stuck having to show up in a middle school, and they use puppets or something, and they really can't get into it as much as they'd like. So that is not a bad suggestion. Let me look into that and see what we can do.
Sure.
All right, I'll tell you what, guys, it's 3:15.
Oh yeah, you got your presentation to do.
I have two presentations, two
All right.
very separate presentations. So,
I'm going to mute myself and give you full screen so you can just take it and run.
All right.
And I'll pop back in before you're done.
Is Ian Camacho, you damn well bet. Oops, sorry. I am not designed for this PC world.
I missed the mute button. Dang it.
Anyway, I've got a couple of, I want to talk about Kerberos, and I also want to talk about Split Horizon. So,
Okay.
all right, well, Scott, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it, brother. And we will get on this stuff. Ian's there. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Patricia. I try. I really do try. All right. So anyway, we had two questions on Monday. One was, what the heck is Kerberos? And what is, I think it was TGS in particular, ticket granting server they were curious about. And the second one was Ian Camacho talking about Split Horizon. And for the record, there is a VPN Split Horizon. So I remember on Monday I was a little confused, but I got it together. So let's go ahead and let's start with Kerberos, okay? You want to pay attention because the next competition is going to be a Kerberos question. Let's see if I can do this without blowing things up. I'm not quite as good at Zoom as I am with other stuff, guys, so bear with me. Okay, Kerberos, here we go. All right, guys, so I'm assuming you can all see this. Let me wait for the delay here and make sure it's showing up on the screen. Great, okay. So let's start off with what Kerberos is. So the first thing I want to stress is that Kerberos is an authentication mechanism. It allows you to authenticate to stuff. While Kerberos is completely open source, it's got RFCs all over the place for it. In my experience, the only place I've ever seen Kerberos used, ever, is it is the primary tool by which people log into Active Directory domains. That's the big thing, okay? So what I'm going to be talking about is Kerberos from a Microsoft Active Directory point of view. So what we got here on the left is just some client computer. It's either running Windows, or it's a Linux box running Samba, or it's a Mac running Windows file and printer sharing, or whatever it is. And what this thing wants to do is it wants to connect over here to a Windows Active Directory domain controller. And you automatically will use Kerberos. So let's watch Kerberos in action here. So first of all, you have what's known as a key distribution center. The key distribution center has two main jobs. Number one, there's an authentication server, which handles the actual authentication when you log in. And then secondly, there's a ticket granting server, which handles all of the stuff. You're already logged in, but you want to connect to some other file server or a printer or whatever it is. So we have these pieces. So what is a key distribution center? The key distribution center is a service that runs on all Windows domain controllers. There's no exception. In fact, if you try to turn this service off, it'll no longer be a domain controller. So everything we're talking about here is running on the domain controller. So in Windows, it must be a domain controller. There are two subparts to this service. There's the authentication server and the ticket granting server. The authentication server handles the initial login when you first fire up your computer and log into the domain, and the TGS handles the actual connections. You're already logged in, and now you want to go over to this other file server someplace else, or you want to go to a printer or whatever it might be. So the TGS handles the individual connections. So let's watch this process take place. All right, so first of all, we're going to talk about login. This is login part 1. So here on the left is our Windows system that wants to log in. And here on the right is our little pizza box server. And so we have the authentication server and the ticket granting server running simultaneously. Now, for the record, you can't separate these. I can't show you a process for the authentication server and a process for the ticket granting server. There's just a KDC that's running, and you got to go with that. Okay, so you guys ready? Here's what happens. So you log in, and you're going to type in your username and password. So the first thing happens is you have a ticket granting ticket request, or the TGT. We'll talk about that in a second. The TGT, he's basically passing, he's sending his, I don't want to lie here. It's a timestamp plus a username. No, timestamp, username, and a path, and the hash of the password, which is all encrypted, usually under AES. But you got to keep in mind, Kerberos could use certificates if you wanted to. I've never seen that done, but you could do that. And then the authentication server responds back with a TGT response. I don't know. So the interesting thing to the TGT response is that it basically goes, here is response, which has a hash of a password, which I had stored. If you can solve this, you now have a ticket granting ticket. And that's the magic to Kerberos. You have to have that as well. Let's go back in here. All right, so the ticket granting ticket, first of all, it's used to authenticate the user to the domain. It's encrypted with the, here we go. Okay, it's encrypted with the time of day and the user domain's password hash. So you take the time of day, you take the user domain's password, hash it, you take all that and you encrypt it with usually AES more than anything else. So it has to be within 5 minutes of the server's time or it fails. This is an important thing. This is what you'll definitely run into with just about any CompTIA test there is why it's so important that Windows clients and Windows servers have the same time. So let's watch the second part of the login. So now what's happened at this point, the client already has a ticket granting ticket. So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish the login. So the first thing is we send a service ticket request. So this is your ticket granting ticket plus some other information. And that goes to the ticket granting server, which again is on the domain controller. And the domain controller returns back with a service ticket. And the service ticket is the important thing. A service ticket contains the session key to make all sessions with resources on the domain. So if you want to get to a file server, if you want to get to a printer, if you want to get to a remote desktop, whatever it might be, you've got to have this session key. So that session key contains the Active Directory's SID, the unique identifier for the Active Directory, any group information, if you're a member of administrators or accountants, whatever, there's timestamps in there, whatever it might be. And then all of this is encrypted using the user's password hash. Okay, so now that I've got that, I can start going to other resources. So you can see down here at the bottom, what I've added is just some arbitrary file server. Let's stop for a minute. One of the problems that people run into when they start dealing with Active Directory, especially in a small network, is they take this one domain controller and they turned the domain controller also into a file server. That's a terrible idea. You should never do that. So usually what you're going to do is you're going to set up a Windows server as a domain controller. Then you have another Windows server not configured as a domain controller, but it's still a member of the domain. You just set it up as a file server. Okay? I know people trip out when the first time they hear that. The only thing an active domain controller should do is authenticate to the domain and nothing else. You don't want to add jobs to that. In fact, Microsoft says, don't even make it a DHCP server. Now you got to make it a DNS server because that's part and parcel of what Active Directory is. But Microsoft says just keep the domain controller doing the one thing it does well, which is authenticating people and bringing them on. Okay, so now that I've got the ticket, I can go ahead on anybody I want to connect to, in this case, the file server, and I can send a service request, and then they'll respond back and with an acknowledgement, hopefully, because I've got it right, and you are up and connected. You don't see any of this happen. You understand? All you've done is you've done your initial login when you first, got up 8 a.m. and got on the network, and all of this stuff is handled for you automatically in the background. So that's pretty much what Kerberos is all about. Everything pretty much runs from the domain control. So that's the big deal that you need to remember. Let's see if we have any direct questions on that. Justin Miller, 318. When a switch is in client mode, does it ignore configuration changes from the server switch before forwarding, or does it take those changes and then? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So Justin, there's no individual standard for, forget the term. You basically have a number of managed switches, and you're configuring all of these managed switches from a single interface. I think that's what you mean by client mode. And usually have one switch as the primary switch, and then everything gets propagated through there. Does it ignore configuration changes from the server switch before forwarding, or does it take those changes and sends? The only example I could quickly come up with would be in a Cisco configuration, and all of the changes are pretty much instantaneous, absolutely instantaneous. All right. Everybody seems to be happy there, so I'm just going to keep on moving on. All right, so the other thing I want to talk about real quick is Split Horizon, which came up from my buddy Ian Camacho. Hang on. Patricia Grace sneaks one in under the line. Maybe dumb question, 3:27 p.m. Maybe dumb question, but when you say you only have a Windows server acting as a domain controller, nothing else, would you virtual this? Sure. Even at Total Seminars, even our local servers, which are in-house, are all virtualized. We don't have any bare iron, as they say, servers. We're running either VMware mainly, and the machines are separated. So Patricia, are you worried that, okay, I think I know what you're saying. In a couple of situations, we have one physical pizza box server that has multiple virtual machines in it. And some of those virtual machines do act as a domain controller and a DHCP server and things like that. So it's not that important to me to physically separate these functions, as long as I can create separate virtual machines to do these. We just run it on one big box with like 128 gigs of RAM on it. Not a dumb question at all. Patricia Grace, I get confused when people use the term server, if they are talking about software or devices or both. Well, both really. Server is software. You're technically a Windows 10 system where you start sharing your desktop with the rest of the network. It is a server in the most pure sense of the word. The problem is that serving takes a lot of firepower, especially if you have a lot of people hitting that server. Also, you don't want servers to go down. So we tend to take the software function of server, and instead of throwing it on a laptop, we throw it on big boxes that we hook into a rack, and we give them redundant power supplies and RAID arrays and all that stuff, not because the serving software needs it to function, it's because we don't want the serving software to ever go down. I'm assuming, Patricia, like a lot of us, you got Windows Server to run on your home desktop system. It runs pretty good in VirtualBox, right? Well, not good, but it runs. That would not be a production example. We would want to go with something a little bit more serious for real world servers. So a server is software, but it is also hardware in that we use more powerful systems to support the software because we don't want the software to go down. 3:29 p.m. Sanket Gurung. Hello, Mike. You're the best. Just wanted to ask, are there any search for becoming a legit phone, tablet, and PC repair expert? Yes, it's called the CompTIA A+ certification. CompTIA A+, probably 15% of the questions are now on mobile devices. Kevin Lopez, 328. I'm looking to work in a hospital setting. Would it be a good idea to get a Windows Server certification through Microsoft to pair with the A+? Do you think it can help make you stand out? Yeah, I think so. I think so. 3:28 p.m. Don CMPA. That's a new name. Hey, Don CMPA. Newbie here and maybe a bit off topic. That's all right. This is Ask Mike Anything. What are some of the best remote IT opportunities? What are some of the best remote IT opportunities, i.e. blockchain or otherwise out there? Man, Don, don't even think in those terms. Hey, Jaxer. Almost anything that's done in terms of IT support has remote functions now. It almost doesn't matter. Anti-malware, it's all there. What we need to do as IT techs is start to understand that, you know, unless you're snapping in and out RAM, pretty much everything has a remote function to it. We're seeing companies like Tim Green, who was on her earlier. McGraw Hill has permanently closed all of their offices. They have gone to a purely remote environment. And there isn't any one thing or another. And we're in a very much a evolution state on that kind of stuff to see what's going to be there. Everything's going to be there is the right answer. Oh, Sanket Gurung got his A+. Big round of applause to you, sir. Well done, Sanket. Well done. All right. So you guys ready to talk about Split Horizon? This is very much a Network Plus quiz. So let's go ahead and take a moment and talk about Split Horizon. I'm covered in cats. All right, let's do this. Is it on? Is it on? Hello? Hello? There we go. Okay. So Split Horizon is a rule. It's just a rule. It's something we do, and we program this into our routers. And the rule is, in a dynamic routing protocol, you never advertise a route back from the location where you got that route. You got that? In a dynamic routing protocol, if somebody hands you a route that you didn't have before, as a router, you never advertise it back from where you got it. Okay, so let's talk about how this works. All right, so what I got here is I got two routers and they're connected through this one piece of wire that I'm calling connection 2. And right now, each of them in their routing table, let's just say that they're RIP routers, and they now have a setting in their routing table because they send each other routing advertisements that in order to get to C, I go through connection 2, and for a C router, in order to get to B, I get to connection 2. Keep in mind, B and C could have other connections, okay? But in this, we're just talking about that route. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another route. I got a new router here. I'm going to call it router A, and we'll make a connection to B. Now, if you give them a minute, they'll start talking to each other. You don't have to do anything. They just, if you got them all configured as RIP, say, they'll just start talking to each other, and their routing tables will automatically update. Oh, I'm sorry, the connection's called connection 1 between A and B. And all of a sudden, they'll start populating all this information simply because they're talking to each other. So now all of a sudden, B is going to start talking to A, and now A is going to be populated with 2 routes. In order to get to network B, I got to go through connection 1. In order to go through C, I got to go through connection 1. Now you got to be careful here, folks. Routers are stupid, really stupid, okay? And if you don't give routers a rule, they will do stupid things. So you would say to yourself, because you're a human being and you can look at my diagram, you go, well, if something went down, we can see that it probably would be a bad idea to tell router B to go through me to get to router C if that connection's down, right? I agree. It's because you're human beings and you're smart and you're intuitive. Routers are stupid. Let's watch what happens. All right, so what's going to happen here is, okay, so we see that we've got this route to network C through cable 1 on A side. Well, that's the only connection A has said, so that would make sense, right? Here's where we get in trouble as human beings. We think we're smarter than computers, well, because we are really. But what would happen if the connection between B and C went down? Right now, router A says, in order for me to get to C, I go through connection 1. But the dangerous part is, what if router A starts broadcasting to router B and says, in order to get to network C, go through connection 1. Well, B's going to screw up because B's going to start sending data up to A. So it's really important that router A never, ever, ever sends router advertisement back to the place from which they came. Does that make sense? So that's what Split Horizon is all about. Split Horizon's been around now for 30 some odd years. And it is built in and it's automatically part of RIP and BGP. OSPF has a different way, so that's a different dynamic protocol. But EIGRP, they all use tools to make sure that we do not do a split horizon. So the answer is easy. If you receive a route from a particular system, you don't send it right back to it in a router advertisement. That's it. That's all split horizon is. All right. Okay. I think we got the critical ones. So let's have a competition. You guys ready? You guys ready for the competition? Here we go. The competition will be, as always, a free copy of A+, Net+, or Security Plus. And the first person to answer it to my satisfaction is the winner. So, you guys ready? Here we go. Hands on keyboards. The primary service that runs on a Windows domain controller is called the Key Distribution Center, or the KDC. The KDC consists of 2 sub-features. What are the, in fact, we don't even have to give you the whole name. Just give me the abbreviations. There's 2 of them. I'll give you a clue. One of them starts with a T. So you need to give me 2 acronyms in order to win this one. Gee, Manise, Frank. Total it with your 443. Oh, Don CMPA. Look at you, funny, funny guys. Folks, we got a winner already, and the winner is Frank. Frank, weren't you a winner on Monday? Doesn't matter. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to you, Frank. You, sir, are the winner. You need to send an email to kathy.y@totalsim.com. And tell her that you're a winner of today's competition, and tell her if you want A+, Net+, or Security Plus. No, give it to, on it, Frank. What do you do that for? I know you won last week, Frank. No, you're allowed to win. Okay, all right. Frank's giving it away. And so that goes to my buddy, Andre. Andre, my favorite Belgian guy. Andre, you are the winner. You know the system, right? kathy.y@totalsim.com. I'm worried that Scott Jernigan is here, so he'll put that information in there. So Andre, you are the winner. Andre, say thank you to Frank, because Frank is being a nice guy. Frank, you are a hero. I completely agree with Tolwood on there. And it's all good. All right. Just make sure. Okay. Whew. Sudo apt-get prize. There you go. I wish it was that easy. Man, I got a lot of stuff going on here, don't I? We'll definitely do memory channels next Monday because I'm actually interested in it. We'll probably go outside. We will definitely go outside the scope of A+, which treats memory channels very, very simply. But it's good nerd stuff. And I know it kind of came up lightly a couple of weeks ago. So it'll be fun to talk about that. And I will make some inroads with the FBI and see. We do have a local FBI field office and an RCFL, Regional Computer Forensics Laboratory, here in the Houston area. I'll talk to their public outreach people and see if I could sweet talk an agent into maybe doing a Zoom meeting with us or something like that. Or even more fun, maybe we get one of the forensic examiners. That could be a lot of fun too, to get one of those guys on. And that could be a hoot. I'm just looking. Zach Morrill, I'm going to be taking my A+ on Friday. Do you have any advice? Much appreciated. Zach, the biggest thing I'm going to tell you, it's Wednesday and you're taking the test on Friday. Number one, chill out. The number one reason people fail CompTIA exams is test anxiety more than anything else. Keep in mind that, Zach, CompTIA will put what are called beta questions usually at the very, you go through some performance-based questions first, and then when you hit the multiple choice questions, a lot of times, and I don't know what's going to happen for you, but a lot of times you'll get 2, 3, 5 questions that are so far out in left field, you're going to be like, what is going on? Mike Meyers never talked about this. His training materials suck. I hate him. I get a lot of hate when people fail. And what you're probably looking at there, Zach, are known as beta questions. Go ahead and try to answer them as best you can, but don't worry about it. Especially if you've been using my training material. I'm not saying I hit every topic. I'm sure there's a few I don't hit, but I'm a big believer in D for diploma. And I doubt you'd be running into much that you haven't already studied on my stuff. So if you hit questions like that, and they tend to be right at the very beginning, they're beta questions. Don't panic. It's all cool, man. The other thing I can tell you, Zach, is don't waste too much time on the performance-based questions because they're all at the front. People tend to spend way too much time on them. And then they forget the multiple choice and they got to run through. So use your time wisely. Also remember, use good old multiple choice things. Hit your easy questions and then, hit your 50-50 questions and then hit your I don't know questions. So I usually go through a multiple choice exam 3 times and remember that too. The other thing I would tell you is the night before, if you can avoid studying, avoid studying. The day of, if you can avoid studying, definitely avoid studying because you'll get yourself all wound up. And that's the biggest problem people run into with those exams. This question from Edward. How is the ISS connected to the internet? They use what's known as, God, I wish Dave Rush was here. He'd be better at this than me. It's shortwave radio. That's a KU band or K band. They actually share the bandwidth. It's a digital radio, and they share the bandwidth to some extent with the U.S. military. And but they are connected. And it's not a very fast connection. I think it's about 100K at best. Don't hold me to that. I could be wrong. Microwave radio data channel can connect directly or via satellites. Yes, thank you, Dave. Dave is so much better at radio than I am. I always defer to him on that stuff. Okay, guys, Andre wants to give away his prize. Hi, kid, give them away. All right, we're going to do one more We're going to do one more competition. We're going to give away Andre's prize here, okay? Andre, thank you so much for giving that away. I appreciate it, brother. Let's go ahead. 443. Let's do one more prize. Let's make it an easy one. You guys ready? Quick and easy. Fingers on the keyboard. You guys ready? Here we go. Fingers on the keyboard. Get ready for it. Here we go. You guys ready? Name one form of dynamic routing protocol. Name one dynamic routing protocol. All right, here we go. We have a winner. Frank, I'm assuming Frank, you were first, but you passed, so I'm assuming you're going to continue to pass. David Zientara. David, sorry if I'm mauling your name there. RIP is one of many types of different dynamic routing protocols. David, you are the winner. Big round of applause to you, sir. You have won I believe it's 90-day access to either A+, Net+, or Security Plus practice questions on the Total Tester Online. In order to receive your prize, all you have to do is send an email to Kathy Y at totalsem.com and let her know that you're the winner. Tell her you want A+, Net+, or Security Plus. You have to send her an email. The email is actually your logon for the Total Tester. So please send her when Scott Jernigan is going to go ahead and type in all this information. There you go. Thank you, Scott. And Dave, grab your prize. Congratulations to you, sir. Okay, guys. First, you take the cattle to the killing floor. Zach Morrill is asking about the performance-based questions, or of us hip kids say, PBQs. Most of them are drag and drop, although some of them are like, look at this diagram and then answer a question. Do you physically write things out? No, I don't think you ever physically write things out, although I don't know, but usually you're drag and drop. Or you're looking at a question and then you have the answer A, B, or C, or D kind of a thing. Zach wants examples. Zach, I don't give away examples, my brother, but we have the amazing total simulation package on www.totalsem.com. You can check those out. Oh, Mark, brother, I got to tell you, man, this stuff isn't free, isn't fair, Mark Wheeler. It shows up differently. People's chats show up differently. And I got to go with that, Mark. Sorry, man. Kevin Lopez, does CompTIA let you use the bathroom? Yeah, but I wouldn't push it. Oh, you're right, Dave Rush. Thank you so much. There are some command line simulations where you do type in an answer. Oh, damn it. Now, Ian Camacho's telling me, I thought you can't leave. I have not taken the at-home testing thing, so I guess the right answer is I don't know. Ian, what do you know, brother? Ian Camacho says, bring a milk jug. So I know that when you take the test at a testing center, if you have to go to the bathroom, you can go to the bathroom. So Patricia Gase is backing up my brother Ian, saying at-home testing said you will not be able to leave. There you go. Scott Turner, okay, quit hitting me. I was wrong. Write down the date and time. Come here, Jack. Say hello to the people, brother. Your sister's been sitting here all day. Come here, idiot. Come on up. Jack. Come on up. We'll see if he comes up. Sparrow System. Hey, Mike, is this good for A+ exam from home? Is what good? All right. You can't take any breaks. Thank you guys for correcting me. Last time I made a mistake, I bought an eraser for my pencil. Yes, Charles, I've been corrected. Please stop beating up the old guy. I'm so... All right, do we have any more questions? All right, looks like we're wrapping up, guys. So, I don't know. I did miss a question. Thank you, Scott. From Web Dev Bootcamp, who I believe already left, but we'll get it. When it comes to liquid cooling, do we just buy and install, or should we look to see if the motherboard or CPU supports liquid cooling? Most liquid cooling solutions can work on any motherboard, or certainly on any ATX motherboard. I'd be a little bit more careful if you're going with the mini ITX or something like that. But the two things you're going to see is mainly the CPU cooler. We'll use the standard CPU mounts, and then whatever radiator system you have will usually fit more often than not on the top of the system, although you have some flexibility there too. The other thing you can do if you want to is that you can do custom builds, cut your own tubing and everything. It works just fine. Mr. Meeseeks. Mr. Meeseeks, look at me. Just popped in to thank you for the A+ exam guide. It's super helpful. You're welcome, sir. Oh, Ian, are you actually being paid to torture me, dude? What is auth-priv? I don't know what auth-priv is. AUTHPRIV. Authorization privileges? I don't know. Give me a context. E. White, so I'll have to wear a catheter when I take the test at home. Ian, you got text me, so I'm not sure what you're asking for, brother. And to be honest with you, I'm getting tired. This has been a long one, and I'm ready to go onto the Discord channel and say hello to people. So, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Catheter Plus. Well, actually, of the two cats today, Margot was the one who was sitting there and licking on my arm. I don't know if you guys even noticed. And Jack just showed up. So, Jack. We'll see which cat decides to go and get online with me. So, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Listen, there is a Discord channel out there. It is not affiliated with Mike Meyers or Total Seminars. It is completely unofficial. I do not either confirm or deny or approve or disapprove of anything that goes on there, but I do tend to show up. I'm going to show up today. And Scott Jernigan has already put that up there. Check out our Discord channel and come say hello. And that's right. The administrator is Jose Braden. Thank you, Elbow. All right, you guys are out of control. I'm going to get the hell out of here. All right, guys, I will see you next Monday. We'll be talking about memory channels. Is about the only thing I can guarantee. Also, keep in mind on November 30th, Robin Abernathy will be on. Robin Abernathy knows more about certifications than I've ever dreamed of, and I hate to embarrass her like that. She's a wonderful gal. She works for CyberVista. A lot of times you guys ask me for a second source of practice questions. I always tell you CyberVista, so we're going to bring that on. You have to be on your good behavior. I'm talking to you, Elbow, Tolowit, Andre. CyberVista is actually going to use this video for some of their marketing, which I said they are more than welcome to do. Robin is a hoot. She got a good old Alabama accent, you know, she's cute as anything, and just a wicked smart expert at certification. I'm very, very excited to have her on. That'll be November 30th. And we'll see what else we can do. So until then, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I will see you guys on the Discord channel in about 10 or 15 minutes. And Scott's telling me I missed one more question. Hang on.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm okay. Scott,
Yeah.
Did you pop back up?
Yeah, I did.
All right. All right. Well, guys, we're out of here. I'm going to be on probably a few minutes after 4 o'clock. And on the Discord channel. Otherwise, we'll see you guys here next Monday at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time for more fun of the
Friday at 2 o'clock.
Thank you so much. I can't believe Dave Rush will be, what's Dave doing on Friday?
Dave, what are you doing on Friday?
Dave, what's happening on Friday, brother? Dave Rush is going to be.
Oh, that's right. GIMP. We're going to do GIMP on the Pi.
We're going to do GIMP on a Raspberry Pi.
It's going to be awesome. GIMP.
I'm having a hard time believing that you can run GIMP on a Raspberry Pi.
They've recently updated it. It's apparently much more stable than it used to be. So as an alternative to Photoshop or really.
Yeah, I mean, I've used GIMP. It's not a problem. Now, if they can get Blender to run on a Raspberry Pi, then I'll be really impressed.
That would
so
be
anyway,
epic.
guys, don't forget here at the Total Seminars channel, this Friday, 2 days from now at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time, Dave Rush, the myth, the man, the legend, will be on doing GIMP on a Raspberry Pi. That's like saying dog playing a piano. I'm gonna sneak in very quietly under one of my alternative names and watch all this. So until then, folks, we will see you. And for those of you who want to jump onto Discord, we will see you there. So until next Monday, this is your little Uncle Mike. Come on, got to do it with me like the old dating game, Scott.
Ready? Which hand? Okay. Whoa!
Synchronization. Synchronize.
Ah.
All right, guys, we'll see y'all later. Have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow. Bye-bye.